Hello, and welcome to another episode of Self Improvement for Women. I am your host, Hope Long, and I'm really excited that you're here today with me. And I'm excited that I have an amazing guest on. Her name is Anne-Laure, and she is an expert. She's an yoga therapist and specifically specializes in the mental and emotional health portion of that therapy. Um, Anne-Laure, I'm so excited that you're here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. And so, okay, I want to start off. I want you to give a little bit of your background to the audience so
Mhm.
that they can kind of get a sense of, who you are, how long you've been in this space and stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, so I've been teaching yoga for just over 7 years now, and I've along the way I specialized in yoga therapy. So yoga therapy focuses on working one-on-one with people or with small group that have a similar focus. And I chose to focus on mental health and emotional health because I guess I could just see, the power of yoga for those aspects of our health. And I just, I'm really passionate about that mind-body connection and understanding how our bodies affect our minds affect our bodies, and all the ways in which all the parts of ourselves are connected to each other. And I think yoga is a really great practice really to get into that, because it really looks at all the different layers of who we are. So it's not just, about the physical practice, but it's also about understanding how we operate, I guess, as human beings, have an awareness of how we show up in the world, and how all these different layers, I guess, are connected and how they affect each other.
Yeah. Yes. And so with that mental emotional aspect, right? Something that we talked about the last time we spoke was trauma. And so when we experience trauma sometimes mentally and emotionally, and then it actually translates into our physical health,
Yeah.
into our bodies. And I know that you do work very specifically with this style as well. And so I kind of want to move into this space where maybe talk a little bit about, how I know women carry trauma with them all the time. Like we carry generational trauma, from long ago. And some of us have been through traumatic experiences that we might think have not affected us, but yet we might be carrying it in our bodies. And I know for me,
Yeah.
that looked like I was having stomach pain and all this stuff. And I ended up developing Crohn's disease and all this stuff. And it was related to stress and trauma.
Mhm.
Right. And
Mhm.
so I want you to kind of go in a little bit and teach everybody what that looks like and how that happens.
Mhm. Yeah, so I like a very practical example that I think we can all relate to is that often, when we feel stress, we might tend to, maybe tense up in the shoulders, in the neck, in the face, right? And so that's one example of how just having this emotional stress is showing up in our body. So certain muscles tense up. And I think depending on who we are and what experiences we've had in the past, we will that kind of tension will show up in different places in our bodies. Um, and trauma also affects how our nervous system responds to different things that are happening around us, right? And I think if we look at it from the yoga perspective, and I guess also from the Western model, we can see that we need a balance of things that are stimulating, and that maybe there is a little bit of stress. We all need that to move forward and do things in the world. And we also need the other part of that, which is the relaxation aspect of it. And I think just because of the world we live in, and I would probably say, especially as women, we tend to spend less time in that relaxation response and more time in that stress response. And so while experiencing stress in some ways is, healthy and part of life, I think we all kind of are stuck in that stress response, that chronic stress, which can, I guess, move into chronic pain, etc. Um, And so it's, you know, it's similar with traumatic events. And I guess what happens more so with trauma is that it also like kind of takes away our sense of power in a lot of ways, because often when there is trauma, you know, there is a lack of choice and we just feel like we cannot do anything about what is happening to us. And so the way that yoga helps with that is that, you know, through like practices those different things about like making choices, taking action that is actually supportive for us, understanding like the rhythms, you know, the natural rhythms of our bodies, and feeling that sense of safety, like in the right here, right now, like in that present moment, is how we can start reversing some of those, you know, patterns of trauma. And, you know, I think looking at that and practicing that in very small ways. So the way that the trauma sensitive yoga approach does that is that, for example, you know, we practice like feeling what is going on within our bodies. And often when there's trauma, like there's very good reasons why we might not want to feel what's going on in our bodies. Like that's just a way for us to deal with like continuing to move through life. But there is so much either like, I guess, heartbreak or suffering within us that like we have to find a way to
Like a
continue
coping,
about
yeah,
our
it's like
lives, right?
a very unhealthy coping mechanism, right? Is just like having that disconnect, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all have different ways of doing that, right? Like we all have this, you know, lots of ways that we do that in the world, whether it's through like alcohol or food or social media or like technology or whatever it is, right? And so when I'm working with people, like it's not about just like saying, well, you can't do that anymore. It's about like finding other ways that we can safely be in our bodies and feel what's going on in our bodies. And often that's very uncomfortable, to say the least, and sometimes unbearable, right? And so it's just about like finding small ways in which it's like, okay, when I lift my arms, I can feel like the muscle in my shoulder. Like that's kind of like the way we start with that kind of thing. And then just expand into, you know, when I feel sadness or anger, like this is how it shows up in my body, and just starting to feel more comfortable with experiencing, you know, this different sensations in our bodies.
Yeah. And then it's like an awareness, like bringing in an awareness to that. I think so many times, like we work out, we go to the gym, right? And like we run on the treadmill and we like hurry up and get that cardio in and do that stuff. And then like we never really like come down from that sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes we skip the after workout stretch or like the come down from it. And that's where like if you bring an awareness to your muscles and you can feel your heart beating and you can like bring yourself into this, you know, sense of awareness, I think it's almost more beneficial for your health than just the workout itself, right? When it's more
Yeah.
mindful and more intentional, I guess is the
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I know we kind of talked about like disconnect and then like trying to establish safety in the body. And something that's been coming up for me, as in podcasts I've been listening to and things like that, is like our subconscious always tries to keep us safe. And so I think, you know, something that we could maybe speak on a little bit is how, you know, when you're practicing yoga and you are being intentional, like you're giving yourself, and you touched on this a little bit, choice, right? And you're in control, you're making that choice to be intentional and to create that safe space for self. And like, yeah, and like it wires right into your subconscious and then your conscious.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, we sometimes confuse like what feels familiar with what feels safe.
Yes.
And you know, we sometimes hear about like, you know, getting out of your comfort zone and that kind of thing. And I think that's all well and great, except that like when we don't feel safe in ourselves, if we just like kind of push ourselves to move towards something that feels like really scary and like unsafe, that to me, that has the potential of like just like re-triggering a bunch of things, and is not actually, helpful. So a lot of what I work with people, like especially initially, is that sense of like, right here, right now, like I'm okay. I can feel my feet on the floor. I can feel my body. Like I'm safe right here, right now. And that goes through, little things like, okay, I can feel that I'm breathing. Like, what is telling me that I'm breathing right now? Like, I can feel my lungs expanding and contracting. I can feel the air moving through my nose and my throat and my lungs. And so I think like little things like that, of like having that knowledge that, we exist in this moment and we are alive in this moment, can be really powerful. And it seems like little things, but a lot of us, just go through our lives without really like thinking about that necessarily, and we just get, caught up in like the our day-to-day
Day.
stuff, and just
Yeah.
yeah,
I think we get caught up
forget
in
to.
like just existing, right? Instead of being present.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
instead of being present, we're just kind of like get up in the morning, we do the things that we're supposed to be doing, and then we get
Yeah.
to the end of the day and we're like, okay, it's time to turn off now, and then we go to bed. And like
Right.
we've
Yes.
never spent a moment to realize I'm a living and breathing being,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
I think
Right.
it's a very powerful thing to be able to practice. And I
Mm-hmm.
know yoga is huge for this. And there's lots of like small practices of just being intentional that we can practice anytime. Like it doesn't have to be a full on like yoga
Yeah.
like workout.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a
Absolutely.
30-minute
Yes.
session. So if you could, and I know like I didn't like forewarn you on this part of the conversation, but I know that those practices are so valuable. So what are
Mm-hmm.
some like little things that people could like implement today just to be more, just to create that safe space for themselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and it's often something I tell the people that I work with, that like we don't need to be practicing like an hour of yoga every day to really like get the benefits of this practice. I think to me, it's really more about like finding the practice in those small moments throughout the day, rather than just like, okay, I'm going to a yoga class like once a week or once a month. And, we don't necessarily like, we get the benefits of it while we're doing it, but not necessarily like in the long term. So I think one thing that people can start with, that is really helpful, is connecting with the breath. So I think the breath is really powerful in that like it connects, with our body, with our nervous system, and we can just really find that like moment of being present just by noticing our breath. And so it can look like, just pausing for a moment and just taking like a few deep breath and noticing, okay, I feel this breath in my chest, I feel this breath in my belly, or I feel the air moving through my body. So things like that. And it can help to like either say those things out loud if you're in a space that you can do that, or just even like, notice and observe those things as you are breathing. Um, I think, moving your body in some way, is helpful. So again, that doesn't mean like going for like a 30-minute walk or going to the gym or anything like that. It can just be, especially if you're someone who spends a lot of time sitting at a desk, I think just taking a few moments, a few minutes throughout your day, exactly, to just like,
Shoulders.
open your arms and like breathe and move in some way, right? And
Yeah.
so when I work with people, like, we develop like a short little practice together, something that will fit into their day, something that will just like weave into their life as it is right now. So we're not trying to just, come up with some kind of like complex like exercise practice or anything like that, but it's just really more, okay, like where are you at, like what feels accessible and feasible for you right now. So I guess that's probably the two things that I would start with, is like connecting with the breath and just finding ways to move the body that feel supportive and nourishing for you.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that, yeah, like it doesn't have to be this hour long yoga session that you commit to, that you drive to,
Right.
you do, and then you
Yes.
drive home
Yeah.
and you take your shower, and like, it doesn't have to be this big thing, right?
No. Yeah.
And I think this is also a great form of just self-care, which
Mhm.
again ties into that mental and emotional health and
Absolutely.
well-being.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, you sit at a desk all day, but when you do take those moments, and doesn't have to be like every hour on the hour, it doesn't have to be a
No.
big deal.
Yeah.
Just taking those moments to just recenter yourself, I guess, and like
Mhm.
reground yourself.
Yep.
The effects of this long term look like better
Mhm.
decision making skills, right?
Mhm.
Better
Yep.
time management skills, being able to come from a place of like peace and understanding when you're speaking with somebody else. I know a lot of times, surprisingly, like our mental and emotional health shows up in our conversations with others. And
Mhm.
so
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
you're practicing this awareness, and bringing this space for yourself, you'll be able to emit, I don't want to say emit, but have more progressive and more intentional conversations with
Mhm.
others, more productive
Yeah.
conversations with others.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and I think for a very long time I was a very angry person, right? I was a
Mm.
recovering alcoholic and I was angry all the time, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
I was an active alcoholic and I was angry.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
getting into sobriety and like starting to kind of dabble a little bit in all these techniques, like the breathing, and then like
Mm.
trying meditation, and then like
Mhm.
trying to go for walks and like some light stretching. All of those things have helped immensely,
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
far as just being balanced. Like I think a
Mhm.
lot of times
Yeah.
the balance wheel, right? And it's like 80%
Yes.
work, and it's like really weighing you
Right.
down, and then like 20% is about you and your happiness,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my
Mhm.
God, this is a terrible terrible situation, right?
Yeah.
And you bring that balance in, that you
Mhm.
provide for your clients, and kind of
Mhm.
teach them how to tip the scale to be
Mm. Yeah.
more equal. I
Mhm.
think that's an
Yeah.
amazing, and I think it's an
Absolutely.
important tool to have. It's an
Yes.
important tool to have in
Yeah.
the toolbox.
And
There's
I like that you said, it's like a lot of little things that you did that like provided that balance. Like I like 100% agree with that. I don't think it's like one thing is going to change everything, but it's just more like the little things that we do throughout the day that really like bring us back into that balance.
yeah,
And I think if we look from like the yoga philosophy perspective, the idea is that like by having more awareness, like we create more space around like noticing, oh, when this happens, I do this.
hmm,
And sometimes like those things just happen like automatically, right? And um as we have more awareness around those patterns, we can be like, oh, okay, this is like what's going on here. And it gives us a chance to like slow down, like practice being aware of this. And the more that we slow down, the more we have a choice about like what we decide to do next, right?
yes,
And so yeah, that's like part of, I think, of the trauma sensitive yoga practice is like, it's like, oh, okay, I noticed this. I noticed that I have a choice to just, keep doing what I'm doing or maybe try something else. And it's not like I'm committing to doing this like differently every single time. It's just like I'm noticing this and I can make the choice between those two things. And it's like,
yeah.
okay, what would happen if I did this instead of that, right? Like bring that curiosity piece instead of like judging ourselves for doing it like the wrong way or,
And then we
you know
all
what I
are
mean?
guilty of doing that. Like we all
Oh,
do.
absolutely. Yes.
And like, so, and like negative self-talk is a big thing. And I think
Yeah, for
when
sure.
I like started kind of dabbling with yoga and like dabbling with
Hmm.
meditation, I became a lot more aware of like my thoughts, because I was trying to be
Right.
quiet, right? Like I was trying to like make
Mm.
myself shut up in my head. Like I know it sounds
Yeah.
crazy. And I was trying to be really intentional, and I was like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. Like, oh my gosh, this is not working. I can't do this. I'm not
Yes.
able. But like
Yeah.
the more I kind of like, I tried to find stuff that worked for me. Like I found
Mhm.
out like being outside and just like walking
Mhm.
around, I would think of like nothing. Like my brain would just be like, huh. And I'd be like, oh,
Right.
that's what
Yes.
meditation is supposed to feel like. That's
Yeah,
what I need to be
exactly.
thinking about in yoga. This is the feeling I should have. Like, and so it gave
Mhm.
me a new reference point. And like, that's
Mm-hmm.
why trying different stuff is so important, is
Absolutely.
it gives you a
Yeah.
new reference point. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
and so, yeah. And so you mentioned again that space for choice. And
Mm.
I think for a lot of the women that are watching, they've been following some of the episodes, and we've talked a lot about self-care and making the choice to connect more with yourself and your body
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. How does give us some excellent, just real world examples of how having choice in your life can, like, take you to that next level of awareness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think like they both kind of feed into each other. So often I start with the awareness piece and just have people just notice, how they show up, how they do things, what, thoughts might lead to like an action and that kind of thing, right? And what I've noticed with the people I work with is that, like there will definitely kind of be that point where things kind of click a little and they're like, oh, like I'm really like noticing that, when this happens, then I do this, right? And so then, we go into, okay, so now that you have this awareness, you can, you know, be more empowered in your decision making. And so you come at the decision from like that centered and empowered place. And even if you continue to make that same choice, it's coming from like a way different place of like, oh, I'm actually choosing this. It's not like I'm reacting to something. It's not like this is like an automatic, like autopilot kind of thing, right? I'm consciously making that choice. And I feel like then comes the point of like, okay, like I'm realizing that this choice may not be the most supportive thing for me, and I'm going to try something else. So it's not like, this is bad for you, you should do this, right? And that's often kind of like that self-talk that we have. It's like, I shouldn't do this, I should do this instead, but like, I really want to do this thing, even if I know it's not great for me. And so it's, it's more like that approach about like bringing curiosity and compassion for ourselves, I think is very important, because often, when we start having awareness around how we talk to ourselves, how we think about things, we're like, oh, like, I don't like this.
I had that moment. That was
Right?
me. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to me. Like, so mean.
Right.
And it was
Yeah. And we do
affecting,
that.
I
We do
didn't
that.
know, but it really was affecting everything in my world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, once I started like being a little nicer to myself, a little more
Mm-hmm.
kind to myself, everything else
Mm-hmm.
like started looking a little bit like the grass started looking greener. I mean, it's
Right. Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And like, one thing I want to touch on really quickly before we end is,
Mm-hmm.
I think so many times we set a goal, right? Like, oh, I'm going to do yoga once a day, or what, every day for 30 days, or we set this
Right.
really big, crazy, outrageous goal. And what we
Mm-hmm.
just talked about was doing very small intentional things to get you
Mm.
started.
Yeah.
Um, rather than that big crazy audacious goal
Mm-hmm.
that may or may not work out for you, right? But
Right.
we're
Yeah.
all guilty of doing this. We do this every
Yes.
year on New Year's Eve. We set a big goal. I'm gonna
Absolutely.
quit smoking this year.
Right.
Okay. And then like it's February and I'm like, oh, you know. Um, but when, being intentional, again, it's the smaller things. Um, that it's not a like a flip of the switch. Like, you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
be all healed. And I just want to be really clear on, like, on this. One session of yoga is not going to heal you of all your trauma. You're not going to wake up in
Mm-hmm.
the morning and have a brand new life, right?
No.
But what you will have is a more grounded and compassionate sense of self. And
Yes.
when that starts to happen, then those really big changes that you want to see, they start to
Mm-hmm.
develop in front of you. And it
Yeah.
just takes time. It takes practice.
Yeah.
That's why it's
It
called
does.
like practicing yoga.
Yes.
I'm
Absolutely.
practicing meditation.
Right.
Um, and so I wanted to make that point for the people that are watching at home that think like, I'm going to start doing yoga 3 days a week and I'm going to turn into this amazing person after like my first session. No, you're not, but you
Yeah.
will have a you'll be on the staircase, right? You'll finally take
Right.
that first step.
Exactly.
And that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's also important to know yoga is one of those practices where you just continually get better. Like you never really like top out, right? You never like really achieve, like I know there's like master yogis and there's like master meditators and all these things, but you never really top out because there's always so much more to you than you realize.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I think it becomes less about what you do in your practice, even though that's, you know, important, because some practices will be helpful for some people and others not, right? But it becomes more about, yeah, that sense of like reconnecting to ourselves, having awareness of ourselves, and yeah, caring for ourselves. It's just another way to care for ourselves, right? And you talked a little bit about self-care, and you know, I think we can definitely take our yoga practice and make it something else to be wrong about or something else to judge ourselves about, right? Like we can do that with everything, and we can definitely do that with a yoga practice too, especially with the way that, you know, it is sometimes like portrayed like in our Western culture. You know, it can just become like something that you're not good enough at, or
Right. Like
something
it has
that,
to
you
be
know,
perfect. Like that
exactly. And
perfection
so
problem.
yeah, so I think it's important to just, you know, use the practice as a thing to support ourselves, not like something to make ourselves wrong about or to judge ourselves about, which,
Yeah.
you know, is a fine line, I think. And like you said, we can have some like high expectations of like what a yoga practice can do for us, and yeah, like it is definitely very beneficial in a lot of ways. And like we're still humans, right? And so we're still gonna have good days, we're still gonna have bad days, right? No matter like how much yoga we practice and how much time we spend on our yoga mat, it's not like it's gonna solve everything for us either.
But
So you know, it's just,
but
yeah,
it
just
is
know
another
like,
way. Like it's just
yes,
another way. It's
it
another
is.
great way. I talk a lot, like the whole show is about self-improvement. So I have all
Exactly.
kinds of speakers
Yeah.
on here that do
Mhm.
different things for
Mhm.
personal development, and yoga is
Yeah,
one of those other things. So, and if you're like
exactly.
me, I'm not a one size fits all kind of person. Like I
Right.
have a
Yes.
lot of hobbies that I do. I have a lot of
Mhm.
different activities that I've tried
Yeah.
because
Right.
I tend to get bored, right? Very
Mhm.
easily. So I have
Yeah.
to have something that is perpetually changing, or like
Mhm.
there's something new to learn. And yoga
Yes.
is one of those things that like if you
Mhm.
start it, you
Right.
could very well end up sticking to it because there's always something new. It's never going to
Absolutely.
be the
Yeah.
same routine. That is what I hate about going
Mhm.
to the gym. I have the same
Right.
routine every time I go to the gym. But
Yeah.
yoga, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of poses and,
Mhm.
different ways to breathe and different ways
Mhm.
to center yourself, right? And so
Yes.
that is one
Absolutely.
of the better things about yoga is that it is
Mhm.
diverse.
Yes. Hmm.
So
Yeah, and you know, I think it can really also like your yoga practice can evolve as you evolve in your life, right? Because like if I work with someone who's like 25 and really fit, and if I work with someone who's 60 and is looking for like support around like pain in their body, like the practice is going to look completely different. And it's still like, you know, drawing from that yoga, from the practice of yoga and the philosophy of yoga, but it just looks different for different people, right? And I think that's another thing that I really love about yoga. It can really like support you in different ways at different stages of your life.
yeah. And I think we all need something like that, right? Because we're all ever changing. So I think
Exactly.
yoga
Yes.
is amazing, and you are an amazing yoga therapist. And thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming on today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. You guys, if you want to connect with Anne-Laure, all of her stuff is here at the bottom. So you can reach out to her if you have questions. Maybe, maybe you're not local to her, but she might know somebody in your area that's teaching. Believe she's getting ready to be more in the online space as well. So
Yep.
that is something that you could look forward to if you want to speak with Anne-Laure. Again, connect with her here at the bottom. And you guys, we will see you on the next one.